This is my seventh training session with KSA team, and I'm really happy to be with you again as part of the McGraw Hill team. Today's training is gonna be we follow the same pattern we follow every training sessions we have is that we have a training over 2 days. Usually our training covers on the first day product orientation, and on the second day is more of a pedagogical approach. A few things to cover before we start our trainings. As Sarish said, no ما في رابط حضور, there is no attendance link. So the fact that you're here, you're already registered as attending. You will receive your certificates after the training at some point within the coming few weeks. You will receive certificates that you have attended this training from McGraw Hill, so you don't have to worry about that. And I will say that in Arabic again. الشهادات راح تحصلوا عليها خلال الأسابيع القادمة من شهادات إنكم حضرتوا هذا التدريب. فما في داعي تقلقوا بهذا الخصوص. على الإيميل المسجل يلي حضرتكم دخلتوا فيه على هذا التدريب. Training, because we have a lot of people, is gonna be more of a webinar, so we're not be able to have a lot of breakout rooms or discussions, unfortunately, but we will keep any questions that we have towards the end of the session. We will see how the time goes. Whatever questions that we cannot cover by the end of the session, we will be able to cover tomorrow as well, because we have trainings over 2 days, as we mentioned. I apologize for not being able to cover any questions that are not related to the product itself or the pedagogical aspects that we will be covering, but I will try to take your questions that I will not be able to answer up to whoever responsible for answering those questions. Our training is going to be divided today into 3 parts. As usual, our subtopics are going to be covering some aspects on Top Goal 2. So it's going to be a refresher on Top Goal 2. We're going to be talking a little bit about the methodologies and the ways to work with Top Goal 2 features. We'll be covering the social emotional learning aspect, the integrated learning aspect, the review, and the project. We're going to be covering Top Goal 2 content in semester 2 in detail. And in this training, you will see how we're going to be looking at each of the units from unit 5 until the goodbye unit. We'll be looking at them in details together, and we will see how we're going to tackle these units together, like how we're going to cover the grammar aspect, the vocabulary aspect together. I'm going to give you a lot of hints and tips on how we're going to teach those lessons. And in the teaching young learners aspect, we're going to be talking about how we develop reading and writing skills in young learners. As Sarish mentioned, the timing for this training is 90 minutes. We'll try to cover as much as we can within this 90 minutes time frame. So let's start by talking about a little bit on the Top Goal 2 methodology and features. So in the methodology, we'll talk a little bit about the social and emotional learning, or the SEL. We'll talk about the IL, or integrated learning. We will cover the review and the project aspect. In terms of the scope and sequence in term 1, this year has been different for you because we had terms 1 and 2 instead of 3 terms. So we were able to cover the welcome, personal interest, house designs, job paths, and food in the first term. And for term 2, we'll be covering the second part of our book, which is storylines, outdoor activities, trips, outfits, and the goodbye unit. So this is the second part in terms of the framework. In terms of the scope and sequence you're all familiar with. You have been working with it since this year, or if you have been with us for the past year as well, you have seen it. And today we will be talking, our main focus for today's training will be the 3 major parts of the scope and sequence, which is the SEL, which stands for the social and emotional learning, the integrated learning, and we will also tackle the project aspect, which basically ties all the areas and skills required for a coherent and a comprehensive learning journey. So let's look a little bit about on over the methodology. Now, I know we tackled methodology before in our first training, so this is a little bit of a refresher on the methodology of Top Goal 2. In Top Goal 2, we have a clear paced progression. What does this mean? It means we have a structured incremental pathway. So the program follows a progression where the language is introduced gradually, and then we build confidence, we reinforce understanding, and this way that we ensure that we have enough time to build those skills, and we support the steady learner development. We always use the 3P method. Teachers are so familiar with it. Your students should be familiar with it. Presentation, practice, and production. This is how we always present our grammar and our vocabulary. We present the rule or the vocabulary. We allow the students to practice them, and then we allow them to produce them or to use them in new sentences, to use those vocabulary, to use those grammars, to use those reading genres, and all of that. It promotes meaningful language use. We have built-in support for diverse learners. Throughout last year and this year, we have spoken a lot about the diverse learners, the individual needs of students, the different learning styles that we need to cater for within the classroom. And Top Goal 2 does have this built-in support for those students. We have those routines, the built-in routines that support the learning recovery. We always have regular reviews. We always have modern, age-appropriate topics that keep students always engaged. All students progress effectively while having the scaffolded writing practices, listening activities, pre-reading, post-reading, all of those activities and routines that are in the book, that all of them cater for those diverse and individual needs of the students. In the one of the areas within the methodology of Top Goal 2 is that we always have communicative, engaging learning design. So the approach is built on context-based learning. So the language is anchored in familiar real-life situation, and this helps the students or help the learners understand how and when to use the English meaningfully. So I'm not giving the students stories about things that they're not related to. I'm not giving them stories about things happening outside their context. All of the units, all of the topics, all of the stories are things that they can relate to on a personal level. We're always following a communicative teaching approach. The lessons prioritize interaction. We have always purposeful language use through the activities. And all of this promotes speaking, it promotes listening, promotes negotiating meaning. So it's not always a question and an answer. We always have this communication for the learners so that we can strengthen their motivation and their authentic communication. Very important thing that we always focus on within Top Goal 2 is the holistic learner development. If I'm focusing on one aspect in English and not focusing at the other, I will lose the students' engagement, because students learn differently. Students are built differently, and they will learn in different styles. So I need to focus holistically on all of those skills. I need to reinforce their social emotional skills. I develop their soft skills. I give them multiple tasks. I need to focus on their scanning, their skimming, their pronunciation, their reading, writing, their letter and word knowledge. I need to focus on their peer work, on their discussions, the games, all of this to maintain the interest, to support different learning styles. The vocabulary teaching, it's always we need to target both the active and the receptive knowledge. We need to help learners using new words confidently while also recognizing them in text and audios. We need always to have a pre-reading and pre-listening activities. All of this activates background knowledge and sets a clear purpose. It ensures students are ready to engage with the new input. So all of these, I'm just giving you a little bit of background. These are all refreshers, a little bit of what Top Goal 2 is built on, what's the methodology that is followed, how Top Goal 2 was designed. And what we care about generally is the outcome is that Top Goal 2 is aligned 100%. It's exam aligned for vocabulary growth. So there's strong alignment with the Young Learner exam or the YLE vocabulary expectation so that we're preparing students for external exams with relevant and functional language. So I'm giving them something fun, something engaging, something like games so that they are learning in a fun and engaging way. I'm giving them context that they can relate to, real life examples, but at the same time, I'm giving them a strong alignment with YLE expectations to prepare them for external exams. Now I'll start talking about the aspects that we want to cover, which are the social emotional learning, integrated learning, the unit review, and the project aspect. If we talk about the social and emotional learning, if you remember, in every unit you will see this little green box. In every unit you would see it. It's the small green box. It says social and emotional learning, and it has usually some sentences, and you need to the student needs to complete those sentences. This SEL box is intentionally placed in every unit to ensure that emotional and social skills are built progressively and not treated as an add-on. So I don't have a standalone unit or lesson that's called social and emotional learning. I don't have at the end of the unit a page called social and emotional learning. I need social and emotional learning to be built in within the unit as part of building it within the student's character. So I want it to be consistent within each unit. All of the SEL boxes, they are problem based. They have problem based prompts for decision making. So I have scenarios that would strengthen the student's abilities to analyze the situation, consider consequences, and choose appropriate response. So for example, in the first one, it says making new friends can be difficult because I'm allowing the students to analyze. I'm allowing him to relate to it because he's gonna relate to his own personal experience, and then they're gonna choose an appropriate response. uh, Stories, songs, videos, and games, all of those, they can expose students to relatable context and they can help them understand emotions through characters and situations. And this can help them a lot with their emotional recognitions and their interpersonal skills. So apart from this box, a lot of aspects we can add to the lesson, to the unit, that can help with the social and emotional learning. So this doesn't have to be a standalone topic that we are tackling. A lot of collaborative group activities that we run within our classroom, like the pair work, group task, a lot of role play, all of this, it builds cooperation, communication, sense of community, all of this. These group activities, conflict resolution, these are all core competencies of SEL. Reflection moments, they usually reinforce metacognition. They allow learners to process not just what they learned, but how they felt during those activities. So the curriculum that we have, it deliberately ties the SEL to cultural awareness, ensuring that the students understands emotional and social expectations within their own society. And as you saw before, that the scope and sequence provides a clear year-long SEL progression so that the teachers can see how each unit builds on the previous one. So at the beginning of the unit in the teacher's guide, you have seen that in each unit we have social and emotional learning aspect, and you can build as a teacher on that aspect between one unit and the other. So social and emotional learning is very crucial to be taught within the lesson as part of the lesson as not and not as a standalone subject. It has to be taught within the daily activities in the classroom, as well as within this green box by giving them those problem-based prompts and help them solve those I'm not going to say problems, but help them evaluate those prompts that they're getting, think critically, and try to find solutions or appropriate responses to those prompts that they are given. Now, in terms of integrated learning, we have spoken about it before last year. I want to tackle it again because it's very important. So you will see that every core unit in Top Goal 2, it has an integrated learning page. So the integrated learning page, it means it's one page that has a subject that is taught in the medium of English. So it is focusing on one subject that is not English. It can be mathematics, science, social studies, geography through the medium of English. This design, it allows the learners to see English used for real academic purposes, not just for classroom conversations. So I'm taking the students out of my four-wall classroom. I'm taking him away from an English classroom and I'm putting him inside a different academic classroom. It can be science, math, or social studies, geography, and I'm allowing him to see this subject in a medium of English. This is especially important for students that do not study this subject in English. They study it in Arabic and they are given the opportunity to see the subject in English. This design is very important for the students because there is a thematic structure for it and it deepens their cognitive engagement. We'll be talking about cognitive engagement in the third part of the training now, because this also builds cultural awareness for them. It strengthens their subject knowledge and their linguistic skills. So now not only the linguistic skill is better because they know a few words of science in English, they also have subject knowledge of science in English. So we are working on two aspects, their subject knowledge and their linguistic skills. And through this context, rich text, like reading brochures, like discussing real world scenarios, I don't know, like completing cross-curricular projects, students, they're developing this language proficiency naturally while expanding their understanding of the wider curriculum. Why this is important? Because it is a soft CLIL approach. What is CLIL? It is a content and language integrated learning model. Content and language integrated learning. So I have the content, which can be math, science, social studies. I have language, which is English in this case, and it is an integrated learning. So this is a model. It's created before in research, and this is how we have integrated them together, and we have created a learning model. What's the benefits of this model? First of all, we can enhance the language skill because the learners are acquiring vocabulary and structure naturally while exploring academic topics. I'm improving the cognitive skills of the students because they're working with subject content in English, which strengthens their problem solving, their critical thinking, their analytical skills. I'm giving them stronger cross-curricular connections because the students are understanding how English links to other subjects. And I'm giving them also cultural awareness because I'm exposing them to various topics and encouraging their cultural understanding and their global perspective. So, as we can see here, the CLIL approach or model, where I have blended together, I have integrated content and language. I'm teaching them a new subject and a new language at the same time together. It's a very effective model for students because they are learning language skills, cognitive skills, cross-curricular connections, and cultural awareness together at the same time. And this approach, as we said, it is a mastery. It helps because it supports the mastery of both, and it's a tool for communication and understanding for the students. How, if now, if I want to talk about it in practice, how do I think integrated learning would work in practice? If I have a subject, I'm going to talk about one of the units that we are going to be approaching or we have covered, which is vacations. If the unit theme is vacations and the integrated learning subject is geography, the students learn about regions, about climates, about landmarks. If it is math, they can calculate travel distance, they can calculate cost, they can calculate timetables. If it is social studies, they can compare cultural practices or holiday traditions. If it is on English, they can study or read brochures, they can plan itineraries, they can write short descriptions or role play travel conversations. So, integrated learning lessons, they show English how it's being used for real purposes. So, as I said, reading an infographic, interpreting a map, exploring weather patterns. So, as you can see, all of those are not only English, I'm using geography, I'm using social studies, I'm using math within the medium of English. In Top Goal 2, we use those unit themes as a foundation for integrated learning lessons. As you can see that all of those themes that are being used, they allow the students to explore multiple subjects. So the different units, they are different for a reason, and they were chosen as different themes for a very important reason, so that every single time we are able to integrate a different subject within the unit, so that students are exposed to different subject every integrated learning unit. So one time they are exposed to geography, one time to social studies, one time to math, one time to science, and this will support their memory and their transfer of learning. And in this case, we are building real life language skills, because it's not always the same skills that we're tackling. Sometimes they're analyzing visuals, sometimes we're asking them to compare information, sometimes it's a project. And the language needed is different every time, because sometimes we're asking them to describe, sometimes to compare. So the Bloom's taxonomy being used as well is different every time. So the way that the themes are built within Top Goal 2, it allows for the integration of different integrated learning practices and subjects every time, so that the students are able to build memory, support their memory and their transfer of learning among all subjects. So now we can see that English becomes embedded within disciplinary knowledge, and students, they understand its practical value. Because a lot of the times, even my own kids, they would tell me, why am I learning this? And a lot of the time, your students will say, why, Miss, why am I learning this? So when they learn something in English and they're able uh, to use it in a different medium other than in the classroom, they're able to understand its practical value, they're able to gain confidence, and they're able to develop this transferable academic language that support their long-term success, of course. Now we're gonna move to the review aspect of the unit. I'm sure this is one of the most famous and favorite part of the unit for all students. The review part of for the or the unit review in Top Goal 2, it's usually a fun, it's game-based activity. Sorry. It's designed to consolidate learning, to check comprehension, and it's typically structured as a mini board game for pairs or for small groups. Usually, students, they take turn, they roll a dice, they move their counters, and they ask questions from the unit with the option to refer back to the material if needed. The option to refer back to the material if needed is there to make sure that that there is a low stress environment, that it's okay for the students to, there is no fear of making mistakes, If you're not sure, it's okay to go back to the material and check. This approach actively engages the students, reinforces the vocabulary and the grammar through repetition in context. You motivate the learners and make it enjoyable. The game is collaborative, it's competitive elements, encourage correct language use. So there's a lot of key features within the game. As we said, active engagement. The game encourages participation to reinforce the learned language. There is repetition in context. So the vocabulary and the grammar, they're practiced repeatedly in various scenarios. So we have them already repeated in the lesson, repeated more than once, and then again, we have them repeated in the review in a different context. It's motivation and fun. It's enjoyable activities that boost their motivation and retention. We have competition and collaboration. The game dynamics, usually they increase the investment in using the language correctly. There is contextual learning because the students are applying language creatively in different contexts. We're asking them to use it in different contexts than the book. For example, I'm asking them, say what you did last Friday. It's a completely different context than what they have learned. And most importantly, it's a very low stress environment. It's a review, it's not an exam, it's not graded, it's a safe space for experimentation. There is no fear of mistakes, which enhances their confidence and make it enjoyable, and they are learning through fun again. And the last part I want to talk about in this, in part one of our training, is the project. So project is usually placed at the end after the unit review, and it allows the students to apply what they have learned in a real life context, reinforcing vocabulary, grammar, and overall language skills. The project usually integrates, it's a holistic approach, as we mentioned at the beginning of the training. So I'm integrating speaking, listening, reading, writing. I'm promoting balanced and active language use and language development, of course. Like what? I'm doing the research, there's a lot of reading. I'm doing the discussion, there's a lot of speaking. While writing the report or the presentation, there's a lot of writing. While the teacher is giving me the feedback, there's a lot of listening. So there is a lot of holistic approach towards the project. Of course, we're focusing a lot on the 21st century skills. If you were here last year, we have done a very interesting training on the 21st century skills on the 5 C's. Here I just talked about the 4 C's. Here, the critical thinking, on analyzing informations, making decisions. We focus on communication, on how to convey ideas effectively. We focus on collaboration, on how to work in teams, how to share ideas, on creativity, how to present findings in innovative ways. So there's a lot of skills, there's a lot of development in language when we're working on a project. So it's not only that students have to go home, do me a presentation and come back. There's a lot of underlying skills that need to develop when we're working on a project. And that's why as a teacher, you need to give a lot of importance to the project aspect within the lesson. And the most important thing is the real life application. This is a very good opportunity for the students to show how they can implement everything that they have learned in terms of language and in terms of the content of the unit to the realistic situations to reinforce vocabulary, grammar, and the overall language skills, and to show relevance of learning in everyday context and in practical situations. Okay, so this takes us to the end of part one of the training. So in part one, as we said, we tackled the methodology, we covered integrated learning, social emotional learning, review part, and the project. In part two, we'll be talking about content in semester two, as I mentioned at the beginning of the training. Since this year is going to be 2 semesters, semester two is going to be covering units 5 through 8 plus the goodbye unit. I'm going to be giving you hints and tips on how to tackle each of those units before we move to the last part of the training. I'm going to take 10 seconds water break, just 10 seconds. Okay, so top goal two, content in semester two. The lesson flow in Top Goal 2 does not change ever. We always start with two-page vocabulary lesson, two-page grammar lesson, a story, listening and speaking, grammar and vocabulary, reading, word work, writing, integrated learning, unit review, and then the project. It's always the same. Vocabulary is always presented using the 3P approach: presentation, practice, production. Grammar is always presented using the 3P approach. The second vocabulary lesson, we have fewer new words than the first one. There's extended practice activities wherever possible. There's a lot of games within the lesson. We can add a lot of games to make it more fun. Always the reading lessons start with the pre-reading tasks that usually develop a sub-skill. The reading always is helping students or helping the learners develop their vocabulary and the grammar skills and their writing abilities. There is a post-reading activities that check and consolidate their comprehension. There is word work, which helps the learners develop their knowledge of the word formation and the usage. There is always a model. We always give a model, and I'll be talking about the model at the part three. Why it is very important to never skip the model that is given. There is always a model provided. This model gives extra support for the learners when they're doing the writing activities. And the lesson always ends with with the learners producing their own piece of writing. So it's always the same approach. We always follow the same lesson flow, just as a part of a routine for the students. Students feel more comfortable, learners, even teachers, they feel more comfortable when it is more of a routine. When the teachers and the students are comfortable to a specific routine, they feel more calm within the classroom. It becomes more engaging. They know and they expect the flow, even if they don't know what is the content itself. But if they know the flow of the lesson, it is less stressful for them. And our main target is to make the lesson less stressful for the students, more engaging, so that they learn better. Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the training, Top Goal 2 content is going to be consisting of 4 units. We're going to be talking about storylines, outdoor activities, trips, outfits, and we're going to end with the goodbye unit, which usually brings the course to like a smooth and meaningful close. Let's start with Unit 5, which is the storylines. So the theme of Unit 5 is going to be exploring storylines through various movies and story genres. The vocabulary that's going to be covered in this unit are going to be new terms related to stories, to feelings, and to creating a storyboards. By the way, if you want to take notes when I'm talking about this, please feel free, because you have some that's written here. There's a lot of things, tips and hints that I might be giving while I'm talking. So because some ideas might come to my head while I'm talking. So if you want to take notes, because I might be giving hints, please feel free to do so. This training is recorded, of course, but just in case you want to take notes. So again, the Unit 5 is going to be on exploring storylines and various movies and story genres. So all of the vocabulary are going to be talking about stories, about feelings, about creating storyboards. The grammar within this unit is going to be on covering 2 areas. We're going to be talking about the past progressive, so the was and were plus the verb plus ing, and it's going to be also on how to make suggestions. So using the why don't, how about, what about plus the verb plus ing. The skills that we'll be covering within this unit are, in terms of listening and speaking, they're going to be the tasks built around the story themes. And in terms of reading and writing, it's going to be the activities connected to the scenes, story structures, and creative storytelling. In terms of integrated learning, you're going to see language art connections through the unit. And in terms of the wrap up, you're going to see a unit review, of course, and the final projects. So Let's have some ideas on how to exploit the storyline. First of all, maybe you can start with a genre exploration. Maybe show short clips or posters from different movie genres and have the students guess the genre. Use this to introduce new vocabulary naturally. So let's start with introducing those vocabulary. Bring the past progressive to life. Have the students describe what was happening in a scene when something else occurred. So you can use comics, you can use freeze frame images to prompt the sentences like the hero was running when, the lion was attacking when. And this way I'm using the past progressive. I can use the storyboards actively. Let the students create simple 3 or 4 box storyboards for a familiar story or a personal experience. So they can do their own storyboards on something personal or any story that you can give them from a library or from the book. And encourage them, of course, to label each box with a new vocabulary or with a new feelings from whatever new vocabulary that they're learning in the book. Practice suggestion in context. Set up role play tasks. For example, plan something with them. Write a story together. Solve a character's problem, and then use the prompts. So, for example, why don't we? How about? What about? Plus the verb plus ing. So practice those suggestions, but in context. So let them use those suggestions, and when they're doing this role play or when they're solving the character's problem or whatever. Uh, Let them work on their listening and speaking with purpose. So, for example, play an audio clip. We have a lot of audio clips that are going to be passing. Let them read a short story aloud and ask the students to predict the ending. So they're not only listening for the sake of listening, they're going to be listening and speaking with purpose. They will be predicting the ending. Then follow with peer discussions to reinforce the speaking with confidence. Build a mini scene. Have the groups create a short scene from a story or from a play using props or using drawings. Ask them to narrate it. Use both past progressives and suggestion phrases. So use both grammar focus of the unit. Connect to language art. Introduce simple elements of narrative structures. So teach them what are characters, what is a setting, what's a conflict, what's a resolution. All of those are narrative structures within language arts, which is the integrated learning aspect within this unit. Ask the students to identify these elements in stories that they know. Use the final project as motivation. Remind the students early that they will create their own mini story or storyboard. And always remember to celebrate this creativity over perfection to keep their engagement high. This unit is like it's a ground for engagement, for fun, for motivation, for the students to stay as engaged and as creative as possible, because for this the sky is their limit. There's a lot of ideas that you can implement for them to be able to cover the new vocabulary, the new theme, and the new grammar focus within this unit. So these are just some ideas. Second, unit 6, not the second unit. So unit 6 that you're going to be covering this semester is going to be outdoor activities. So we're starting to go towards the summer. We are starting to learn about stuff related to summer. We are approaching summer, so the students are more approaching, and we're talking about outdoor activities and outdoor adventures. So the vocabulary are more related to outdoor activities, weather conditions, nature related terms. The grammar is going to be simple past, past progressive. They're going to be using when and while. They're going to be talking about the great outdoors. They're going to be choosing activities based on the weather. They're going to be talking about their adventures. They're going to be reading and writing about the adventures and the experiences in nature. The integrated learning aspect is going to be on studies, on social studies, connections, on exploring landscapes such as deserts, forests, and mountains. And of course, we're going to wrap up with a unit review and the final project related to the outdoor activities. This is also a very fun unit to exploit. How we're going to start with it? Start by asking students about their favorite outdoor activities. Ask them about their plans for Eid. Eid is going to be maybe around the corner for that, or maybe the Eid al-Adha. Ask them about their plans for summer. Use photos of parks, of mountains to spark discussions. Bring weather to the classroom. Ask them, use daily weather updates to practice vocabulary and link activities to weather conditions. Tell them it's windy today. What outdoor activities could we do? It's rainy today. It's sunny today. It's rainy in Norway today. It doesn't have to be related only to our country. You can just be exploring different countries. Uh, Contrast simple and past progressive. Show outdoor scenarios and have the students describe what was happening. So show them someone is hiking or someone is biking. Tell them while we were hiking, we saw, and let them continue the sentence. So always the prompts, they help the students a lot. Half a sentence really helps the students in engaging them and giving them this little area of creativity and thinking of what they need to do to finish the sentence. Encourage their adventure storytelling. Have the students create short adventure stories or comic strips. Boys love creating comic strips. Let them use when and while structures to describe what happened. So here you are focusing on integrating the grammar within the reading and writing. Let them speak through role play. Let them set up summer adventure planning discussion in pairs or in groups. Let them choose activities based on weather cards that you provide. So they are given different weather cards. One is given windy, one is given snowy, one is given sunny, and they are planning different activities based on those weather cards. Let them explore landscapes through social studies. So show them photos or videos of deserts, of forests, of rivers, mountains, and have them match those activities to landscapes. For example, where do we camp? We have to camp in the desert. Do we camp in the forest? Do we hike in the mountains? Do we hike at the beach? So let them match those activities to the landscapes. Let them do outdoor activity vocabulary in action. Let them play, act it out. Let them play charades game where students perform outdoor activities using the new vocabulary that they're learning. So all of this is great for motivation, great for movement, great for fun, and it's building toward the project on outdoor activity trip as the final project. You can use the Unit 5, the storyboard. They start by planning through a storyboard, a written story, and then a presentation on their outdoor activity. So you are keeping their motivation high. You're tying all their skills together. You are tying actually two units together here while keeping them engaged, motivated, fun. So instead of teaching them, instead of spending 1 hour teaching them, oh, this is the vocabulary of the day, this is the grammar that we're going to study today, these are the skills practice in reading and writing that we'll be doing for the day, and spending the entire week covering that, we have done it in a very engaging and fun way where students, it's a flipped method. Students are learning on their own. You are giving them the grammar focus, you are giving them the vocabulary. We are following the 3P method, but still it's fun, it's engaging, it's great for the students to be motivated all the time, and it's doing the same, we're covering the same objective at the end of the day. Now we cover Unit 7. Unit 7 is on trips. It's about travel, field trips, and preparing for the summer vacation. So the vocabulary are more on travel vocabulary, the time expressions, AM, PM, and common travel terminology. The grammar is on present, perfect, simple, and the use of already, just, and yet. The skills there, the listening are on trips, past travel experiences, and future travel expectations. And also the reading and writing is on field trips and places students can visit. In the integrated learning, there's a math connection through the basic calculations for travel budget, tickets, food, and passengers. And the wrap up is also on a unit review and a travel themed project. How can we connect travel to students' life? We can begin with questions like, where have you traveled? Where would you like to go this summer? This naturally introduces the present perfect. And then we create the have you ever classroom survey. Then the students would walk around, they ask classmates. Then we can use real classroom examples. I have already taken attendance. I have just opened the window. We haven't started the lesson yet. All of this we have introduced already, just and yet. And this lets students create similar sentences connected to travel. Then we can make the AM PM fun and practical. We can give the students simple travel schedule with departure and arrival time and have them read and interpret the times and plan like a mini itinerary. We can bring the vocabulary to life through scenarios, so we can set up simple role play. Someone will book a ticket, someone needs to ask for direction, someone needs to pack for a trip, and we can encourage them to use the new vocabulary in context. We can connect with math in a meaningful way. We can give the students a small travel budget for a pretend trip, and then we have them add the costs, like add how much is gonna ticket, food, transportation is gonna cost, and you have to subtract it from the total, divided among the passengers. I have integrated math within that. So this is how we can tackle or exploit Unit 7 on the trips. Unit 8 on outfits. So, Unit 8 is going to be talking about fashion, clothing, and outfit design. So, the vocabulary is going to be so much fun for the girls. The vocabulary is going to be talking about clothing items, materials, and design terminology. The grammar is going to be focusing on present perfect questions and short answers, and the be plus made of for describing materials. The students will be focusing on clothing choices, fashion design, and dressing for different situations in their listening and speaking practices, and on fashion design tasks and describing outfits in the reading and writing practices. The integrated learning will be focusing on art and design connections to encourage creativity through designing outfits, and the unit review will wrap up the whole lesson with a project at the end. How do we exploit this lesson? This unit, I'm sorry, we can start by having the students describe what they're wearing. This can warm them up and naturally introduce the new vocabulary. And then we can ask them, have you ever designed clothes? Have you ever worn something unusual? Have you ever designed clothes for your doll? If it's for a girls class, you can encourage them with short answers like, yes, I have, no, I have not. Then we can add the be made of. So we can get real objects to the class and ask them what's it made of. So it is made of cotton, it's made up of wool, it's made up of leather. And then we can create like a mini workshop for the students that's fun and creative. For the boys, I know it doesn't have to be clothes, it can be more of a workshop for them to create I don't know, chairs and couches, and like it doesn't have to be a workshop for clothes in specific. And then we can have like a quick we can help practice the students to describe the clothes clearly and confidently, the different clothes that we have, because we have the vocabulary on that at the beginning of the lesson. We can allow the students to decorate patterns, to mix colors, to compare styles. That's how we're gonna connect it to arts and designs. We can to art and design. That's how when the students go to art class, we can see we can like work together with the art teacher to see, are they studying patterns now in the art class? If they're not, maybe we can coordinate with the art teacher at that time if they are studying patterns, are studying mixing colors, are they studying comparing styles, just to keep the students engaged and remembering, oh yeah, we learned this in English and now we're studying it in art class, so they can relate across multiple disciplines. And this all, of course, will build towards the final project where we can let the students begin brainstorming, of course, early within the lesson towards their final project. And moving on to the goodbye unit, usually the goodbye unit, it's a warm final unit that prepares the students for the summer vacation and it closes the school year. Usually we have a dialogue between the mascots. They are hiking, they are planning for a hiking trip. There is a goodbye unit, a poem, and there is a do you remember review page where we'll be talking about things or scenes that came from the book and see if the student does remember them. This is a sort of a reflection to see what does the student actually remembers. So how do we tackle this unit? Make it emotional, but also make it fun. It's the idea, it's the wrapping up of the school year. Let the students share what they enjoyed. Use the mascot's hiking trip dialogue as a friendly way to talk about the endings and the new adventures. Bring the poem to life. We read the goodbye poem along together. Have the students act it out. This all helps the students connect emotionally. Use the Do You Remember page actively. Turn it to a game, turn it to a memory match, turn it to a gallery walk so that the students can identify the unit each picture comes from. They can recall what they learned when they find that page. Revisit key vocabulary and grammar playfully. Instead of testing, use light review games like charades, vocabulary bingo, finish the sentence using grammar from earlier units. And always encourage reflection. So have the students complete simple prompts. This year I learned, next year I want to learn, my favorite moment was so and so. So all of this helps the students connect emotionally to the idea of wrapping up the school year. And usually it's a great way to celebrate learning and reinforce confidence, to keep the mood positive, stress-free, and to help them process closure in a very healthy way. So this is how very like I'm sorry I couldn't go into so much details, but this is in a little bit of details how you can exploit the units, the 5, 6, 7, 8 and goodbye units of semester 2. Now to move on to the last part of our training on teaching young learners how to develop reading and writing skills in young learners. We're going to start with the first poll question. Sarish, if we can pull up the first poll question, please. So I want you please to answer this question. In your classroom, which aspect of literacy presents the greatest challenge for your students? Is it understanding and analyzing texts? Is it reading comprehension? Is it expressing ideas clearly and accurately? Or is it integrating reading insights into written work? Or is it challenges vary by student or context? So we're going to give it like 30 seconds. Again, in literacy, what's the greatest challenge for you? For your students, of course. Okay, so Rish, can you pull up the answers, please? Okay, so answers did vary. A lot of you have said that the understanding and analyzing texts is the main is the main problem or the main aspect that is the greatest challenge for their students. And a lot of you have seen that expressing ideas clearly and accurately in writing is also a big problem. A lot of like there's there's a lot of the first point is a great it does affect a lot the second area, like because students are not able to understand and analyze text, this does affect their ability to express ideas clearly and accurately in writing, and this does actually affect their ability to integrate the reading insights into written work. And of course this challenge would vary by student, definitely, but they are all like very close answers, definitely. Okay, so we're gonna be talking a little bit about the challenges in reading and writing. I always like to start with a little bit of research snapshots on reading and writing theories. In this case, we're going to be talking about 4 different theories or hypotheses. We're going to be talking about Lond's interactions hypothesis, which was back in the 1996. It talks about language learning that improves through meaningful interaction and negotiation of meaning. Schema's theory that started with Bartlett in 1932 and continued with Anderson in 1977. He talked about comprehension. It relies on prior knowledge structure or schemas to interpret new information. Pivio, who talked about dual coding theory, he talked that learning is enhanced when information is processed through both verbal and visual channels. This is personal favorite for me. And common thresholds theory, who talks about cognitive benefits of bilingualism, appears only when learners reach sufficient proficiency in both languages. So these are all research, the hypotheses, theories. Some of you might agree with, some of you might apply to their classrooms, others might say, no, they do not apply to my personal experience in the classroom. We're just gonna be discussing them because they have had a lot of impact on education, on pedagogical practices throughout the years in terms of reading and writing. So Long's interaction theory, this research, it shows that interaction provides learners with immediate feedback, and this helps them notice gaps in their language. So if I'm sitting with someone and I'm able to talk to them and they give me feedback, this helps me to notice that there's a gap in my language and I can fix it right away. That's in a nutshell what Long's interactions hypothesis talks about. It says there is a negotiation of meanings. So there is asking for clarification or rephrasing. It creates ideal conditions for learning because it pushes the learners to modify their output. So if I'm talking to someone and I says a word that that needs clarification, that needs rephrasing, and that person is a native speaker, he fixes that word for me, or he knows the word more than me, he fixes that word right away on the spot. I'm able to modify my output and خلاص, I'm able to engage for the next time in a more meaningful interaction. So with time, my language acquisition becomes better and better. This is the first hypothesis on language acquisition that was developed by Long's interaction. He talks about feedback, how important it is. How does this implement in our classroom? It does, because if we give feedback right away, and that's something I do with my kids, by the way, it is annoying. They tell me all the time it's annoying, but I keep on doing it. Every time my kids say something in English and they say don't instead of doesn't, I do correct them right away on the spot. It is annoying, but with time they will learn that they have to say, if it is singular, they have to say doesn't. If it is plural, they have to say don't. So correcting the students right away, giving them the feedback on the spot, this meaningful interaction, it helps the students with the language acquisition and with being more proficient speakers with time. Another theory, which is schema theory. So schema activation, it plays a major role in how learners interpret texts and respond to reading tasks. So in this theory, they say, Bartlett is the first one who talked about it. He said that students understand the new materials more easily when it connects to existing mental frameworks. So when the schemas are weak or missing, comprehension becomes harder. And this explains why building background knowledge is crucial in ELT. Effective reading instruction often revolves around expanding students' context knowledge as much as teaching reading skills. So what does this mean? It means we have to activate their prior knowledge and then help them with their knowledge. So if the students are not able to understand in this new language, it is because they don't have any prior language knowledge in the language itself, and that's why students are not able to understand as ELTs. They are having difficulties in understanding science if they are not native speakers. Understanding science in English might be more difficult for them because, as per this theory, their processing is in Arabic and is not in English because their background knowledge is in Arabic. That's in these key principles, they say that readers use existing knowledge to make sense of text. This means that the students, when they're reading the English text, they are processing this text in their head in the language that they know originally, which is in this case Arabic. That's why it takes more time with them. That's why it becomes more difficult for them to process different languages as per this theory. How can we tackle this issue in our teaching. There's a lot of teaching strategies that can scaffold the schema for complex text. One of them is giving them the prompts, giving them the models, allowing them to read at home, giving them the reading time, giving them reading essays all the time, giving them within the break times reading in their free time, so that the students are used more and more to the language, so that it becomes part of their schema, of their prior knowledge, so that they are able to analyze in English as well as in their main language, which is Arabic in this case. Another theory that we're going to talk about is the dual coding theory. So this one, I like it a lot because I'm a non-verbal processor. I do not understand something if I read it. I do understand it if I look at it. And this goes into the different learning styles of students. Some students understand some of them are auditory by listening to it. Some of them are visual. Some of them are kinesthetic. Some of them by hands-on activities. So processing informations through verbal and visual channels leads to stronger memory traces and better retrieval. So when learners encounter both an explanation and a corresponding image, the two systems reinforce each other, and that's how the brain works. When you are given a certain word as a human brain, when a human brain is given a certain word, usually your brain processes it as an image rather than a word itself. Now, even if you think of a word red, you don't know the word red, you know an image of the word red, you know something that is red. That's why you know what is red or what is green or whatever. So the processing, if it's given as a dual coding, as in this case verbal and non-verbal, it can be an image, it can be auditory, it can be sorry, kinesthetic, it can be hands-on, it can be a chart, anything that can complement the text. It can help with the memory retention and the memory recall. And this encourages the multimodal teaching strategy and reduces the cognitive overload on the students. How we can practice this in the classroom: cater for the learning styles of your students. Don't give them only, when you're introducing new vocabulary, don't give only the words, give images as well. It's very like, as simple as that. And the last theory or hypothesis that I want to cover is Commons' threshold hypothesis. It says that learners show the cognitive and academic advantages of bilingualism only after achieving adequate proficiency in their languages. What does this mean? It means they are currently your students, they're highly proficient in L1 in their own language. They are able they must reach a threshold level of both first and second language proficiency in order to benefit cognitively from bilingualism. And this encourages their strong foundational skills in both languages. And this theory, it highlights the importance of supporting home language development alongside English. So when we're supporting both languages, this is going to have positive cognitive effects on the students as well. So when I am supporting their Arabic language and their English language equally, so the students are supported to learn both languages at the same time, they have proficiency in both languages, their cognitive advantages are going to be high, and they're going to be able to have higher academic achievements, and they're going to be having positive cognitive effects on both languages. So this is in terms of the different theories and the hypotheses among reading in English language or different languages. Now I want to go to the second poll question that I have, if we can have it, Sarij, there. I want to know what's the biggest challenge that prevents the students from developing strong reading skills. So we had the literacy skills. I want to know what's the problem in the students. Why cannot they develop strong reading skills? Is it because they have limited vocabulary, they have difficulty with decoding or phonics, do they have a lack of background knowledge, or they have low motivation or interest in reading? I know in some cases it might be more than one, but what do you think might be in most of the cases, the biggest challenge for your students? So, Rich, can I have please the second poll question up? We'll give it 30 seconds. Okay, so Rich, can I have the answers, please? Okay, again, answers did vary a lot, but we can see that a lot have limited vocabulary. So we do know the problem. We do know that how we can solve this problem. As teachers, as English specialists, we know that students do develop their vocabulary through reading. That's the only way to develop reading. We have to develop vocabulary. We have to develop reading. If they don't know how to read, they are not able to write. If they're not able to write, they're not gonna be able. They're not gonna build that language anyways later on. So they have to start reading at their own time at home. Reading is the only way for them to develop the vocabulary. I've given all of the hypotheses that support that, and I know it is difficult, but the way to develop those vocabulary is through reading. Difficulty with decoding or phonics, a lot of the students still suffer from that, unfortunately. And at some age, with this generation coming up, I know because we have those new slave words and the words where the students are decoding. I don't know, they're creating their own phonics nowadays. So this might be a challenge as well, but I know in Top Goal too, because they teach it in a way, because it is incremental, it is progressive. Even the learning of those words, the way we teach them, it is progressive. So it starts easy and it becomes more and more difficult with time, with every unit. Okay, so does reading or writing comes first? So we know that writing strengthens the reading. So writing does help the students, the children internalize the phonics, the vocabulary, and the text and the structure. In early literacy development, usually reading typically develops more quickly than writing, because it's generally easier for students to recognize the language, of course, because before they can produce it. So decoding printed words is a receptive skills. Students are able to decode the words, but writing, it requires more complex productive abilities like spelling, generating ideas, motor control. That's why it comes later on at a time. So always reading comes first, then writing. But reading as a foundation, it does appear earlier, but the relationship becomes reciprocal. So as learners develop, reading feeds writing, and then writing feeds into learner. So proficient readers tend to become more proficient writers because they're exposed to models of grammar, to vocabulary and text organization. And writing developed lags reading in early grades because it requires more cognitive effort. But over time, the writing becomes essential for academic success. So the two, they're highly interconnected and they develop in a mutually reinforcing way. Reading does come first at the beginning, but after some time, they both feed into each other's so that the students are able to become academically successful. So when we talk about reading and writing together, they develop together, they reinforce each other. As we said, if you don't know vocabulary, you're not able to read. If you don't know how to read, you're not going to be able to know vocabulary. It's a vicious circle, and I know it's very difficult to break at some point, but we need to start somewhere. So read, notice, write. Students read a model text. That's why we talked about models. Always give the students prompts, give the students models. Let them read a model text. Let them notice language patterns. Patterns are very important, and we do keep routines and patterns in Top Goal 2 for a reason. Students need to get used to patterns. Let them notice the language patterns, then try them in simple writing. This is very important. So, the reading and the writing, they rely on the same underlying skills. The more students read, the stronger their mental models of language become, and the easier is it for them to write. Research in literacy development, it does show that exposure to well-structured text help the learners internalize cohesion markers, organization patterns, academic vocabulary, and they later reproduce it in writing. Shared reading gives equals to guided writing. So use the classroom text to show structure, to show vocabulary, to show sentence flow. Then let the learners write using the same pattern. So use the shared reading that we have in the book as their guided writing part. Read for ideas to let them write for expression. So reading, it builds their background knowledge. Writing helps the students organize and express it. So let them read for ideas. Let them from anywhere, from ChatGPT, from any generative AI blog, from anywhere. Let them read and let them then write to express their ideas and to organize it. And always use parallel activities. Uh, so summaries, sentence starters, graphic organizers, story mapping, all of that, it help in connecting reading comprehension to writing output. The strongest results that come, they usually when teachers intentionally bridge the two skills. They move from input, which is reading, to output, which is writing, in a coherent sequence. Even small routines such as daily reading journals, vocabulary logs, sentence expansion tasks create meaningful integration between reading and writing. If you have it as a starter every day for 5 minutes at the beginning of your class, where you have a reading journal, a vocabulary log, a sentence expansion task, and the students have to do 2 minutes of reading, 2 minutes of writing, and you are bridging those two skills. You're moving from input to output every day for 5 minutes in your classroom. You are able over time to intentionally bridge the gap between these two skills. Moving on to the final poll question that we have. I'm very aware of the time, so we still have two more slides apart from this poll question. So what do you find the most common barrier that students face when writing in English? Can we pull the question, please? Search for this question. Not enough vocabulary to express ideas, difficulty organizing sentences, fear of making mistakes, or limited exposure to good writing models. So, what's the most common barrier that students face when writing in English? Sarish, can we have the question up, please? Okay, can we have the answers, please? Okay, 50% of you, they said they don't have enough vocabulary to express the ideas, which is great because now we know how we can give them enough vocabulary to express their ideas through reading, through giving them 5 minutes at the beginning of every lesson as a starter for them to read and write. This is all build their vocabulary with time. And with time, they'll be able to build this vocabulary that is needed. Ask the students to start simple, and with time, they will be able to build this vocabulary that is needed for them to express the ideas. Fear of make mistakes. This is, I know, 12%, which is a big number for me. Their fear of making mistakes comes from within the classroom. We need to create an environment that is relaxing for the students, that's engaging for the students, that they don't have to make those mistakes. They shouldn't be afraid to make the mistakes. So, just few tips on how to enhance the writing skills for the students. Build the vocabulary through purposeful exposure. Give the students regular opportunities to meet and reuse new words in meaningful writing tasks. Model writing process explicitly. Show examples of brainstorming, of outlining, of drafting. Use sentence frames, writing scaffolds, connectors, paragraph starters, whatever. Incorporate reading, writing tasks as links, as I said at the beginning, starter at the beginning of the lesson every day. Give focused and manageable feedback all the time. Comment one on one or two areas at a time on so students are not overwhelmed. Encourage regular low stake writing. Journals, show reflections, and quick writes help the students to build fluency without pressure. How we can enhance reading skills. Pre-teach key vocabulary before reading. Let the students learn the vocabulary before they come to class. Use guided reading questions to focus attention. Guide the students with targeted questions to help them read with purpose and to improve their comprehension monitoring. Don't let them read just for the purpose of reading. Tell them I'm going to be asking about one, two, three once you finish the reading. Modern reading strategies such as skimming and scanning teach them how to read with purpose, not only reading for fun. Break longer text into manageable chunks. They are ELT students at the end of the day. This language is still difficult for them. If the text is long, break it into chunks. Connect the text to students' real life experiences. Use visuals, graphs, organizers to deepen the comprehension and give the students the time to read silently at their own pace. Everyone learns at their own pace. Check their understanding through simple retellings, through summaries. Summaries are very important for the students. And provide repeated exposure to similar texts or types and structures, routines all the time. If we keep exposing them to repeated text types and structures, students get used to those routines and they become more and more, their reading and writing becomes more and more developed in terms of the pattern and the support. So at the end of our training, I just want you, as usual, to write two things that you have learned today. That's for you, for your own reflection. It's not something that you have to write for me. And I want you to think on how can you integrate those strategies that you have learned into your teaching practices, and how can you, what activities or what techniques that you have learned you are willing to implement to reach your teaching goals. These are some of the references that I have used for today, and we're going to go into some of the questions that you might have. In the question box, we have 7 minutes to look into the questions. I'll try to go
Thank you,
over them as
Salah.
best
That
as I
was
can.
wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Savish.
There are quite a lot of questions in the Q&A box for you to review. I will leave them to you to first read out the questions so everyone knows what we are talking about, and then go ahead and answer them.
Okay, I will. Okay, so someone asked if each unit will be different in social and emotional learning, but according to student society, is that true? Because that means that each society will be different from the other. Each unit will be different in social and emotional learning. No, so not each unit will be different in social and emotional learning. The social and emotional learning aspect, it gives prompts to allow the students to answer so that we can enhance their responsibility, their social and emotional responsibility, basically. But it's not different from one society to another. If we teach the students not to bully, we teach them in every society not to be bullies. So that's not something that will be different in any society. We're just teaching them social and emotional responsibility that can be in any society. There seems to be an unjustified gap between we can and top goal that leaves many students unprepared. Also, the book design, very small text, pictures. Again, that's something I will, Amir, I will copy your question as is, and I'll keep it in my notes, and I will send it. I'm copying it right now, and I will send it to whoever is in charge of that. I'm not sure who will be, but I will, because you're saying that there is something with the book design. Uh, so I'm sorry for that, but I will take your question up with whoever is in charge of the design. That's not something that I can answer you that. Okay, how can teachers realistically bridge the gap? Is McGraw Hill planning to redesign the top goal so it's more suitable for elementary students? Okay, Amr, this question has been asked before. So the book is designed based on YLE standards. It is designed based on Cambridge. It's designed based on the standards that are needed for English, based on the Ministry of Education. It has been approved by the Ministry of Education. So these are the CFR standards for the students and the levels that should be given for the students as per the country and as per given that they are English language learners, and any feedback usually it is given to us through the Ministry of Education. But I do appreciate your concern, and we will take any feedback that is given to us through the direct channels definitely. Thank you. How can I effectively bridge the gap between we can? Okay, so Fatima, you have the same question as Hammer. I will again. It's on how I can bridge a gap between we can and top goal. That's something that I cannot answer because I don't work with on we can, but I will ask the people that work on that, and we will get back to you on that. Is there interaction CD or interaction PDF where I can play the sound directly or on the photos of lesson? I believe that the sounds, the audios were given to the schools through like to the schools directly. I don't think there's a CD or interaction PDF, Abdurrahman. Uh, Okay, don't you think the grammar a little too difficult for elementary school students? As I said, the grammar is built based on the levels, so it is written by experts, so it is written based on the levels of the students. So it's not something for me. I'm the training specialist here. I do not decide on the content of the training, but of the book. I'm sorry, but it is based on the levels of the students. We have to reduce the number of lessons, make them suitable. The number of lessons, again, that's something within MOE. It's not something with McGraw Hill. How go from what to how? When the learning at the moment of how to observe which best learning style suits a student. Usually there are some learning style quizzes that you can do for your students to know what are their best learning styles or learning abilities. You can look for that online. Otherwise, you can just if you notice your students over time, you would see what are their abilities and styles within the class. You would see if it is auditory, visual, kinesthetic, or hands-on. I'm trying to go through the questions as fast as I can. I'm sorry. The best way to assess vocabulary is through reading passages. The best way for them to learn new vocabulary, yes, is through reading as much as possible. Uh, so whoever said how to improve reading for primary school students, give them reading tasks at home, give them more books from the library. Uh, If I say reading requires vocabulary, I disagree. You do disagree that reading requires vocabulary, but you need, that's something we can discuss at other time. Reading does require knowing the words, so you do know how to pronounce a word for you to read. Critical thinking skills. Someone asked, can you give 5 examples of 5-minute reading and writing? I did give examples before. I'm just going to go back to them. So I did say if you go to, so if you do a journal, so they start by reading a journal and then they have to write it. You give them a prompt where they have to read something and then they write it down. You ask them how was their day. Yeah, they have to read it out and then they have to write it. So these are just some 5 minutes examples. Uh, uh, Sarvish, I'm trying to go through the questions. There's 79, I'm sorry. So, and it's already 4 o'clock. Where can we find all the materials related to the book? They are, you can ask your school. Everything is with the school. They have given on a flash drive. Everything is in the school.
Don't worry, Ala, we won't be able to go through all of them just because of the amount of audience we have today. So we can only cover what we have. And we also want to be respectful of your time, everybody who's attending the session. We know it's been 90 minutes and we told you that we will end at 3 p.m. But you will
Yes.
have the recording. And maybe if there are any pressing questions, we can cover them tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. So if there are any pressing questions, you can have the time tomorrow as well to write them down in the chat. So again, as because I've seen some of the questions, if anything related to the grammar being too difficult, again, this is a training session. So please, if you have any questions on the training content itself that you have questions on, I'll be more than happy to answer. I cannot answer questions on the content of the book itself, on the curriculum itself, or on the material of the book, like where are the materials, where can we find them. That's something that I cannot personally answer because I wouldn't know. I'm be more than happy to answer anything related to the content that of the training that I have delivered today. If there have any more questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them tomorrow as well. Okay.
Thank you so much. I guess
Thank
that
you.
brings
Thank
us
you,
towards
everyone.
the end of the session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow. Please don't forget, it's same time. So you will be able to join at 1:30 and then we end at 3. We will see you tomorrow for a great session again. And thank you, Ala, for your time.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much. Bye bye.